You're listening to the Nerd to Know Media Network. Join us at nerdtoknowmedia.com.
Broadcasting from the Blanchistan Center, this is Phoenix FM.
The internet is a communications tool used the world over where people can come together to bitch about movies and share facts.
According to the Nerd Index, you should be upside down in a junior high toilet around the clock.
This is We'll do it live! Time goes in, time goes out. Never miscommunication.
It's over 9,000! My name is Foxy.
The balls are in there. Do a barrel roll. Don't save me, bro. It's a trap. I'm a firing believer. Time to do. Hey, Charlie, wake up. Oh, God, oh, man.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Nerd to Know Basis Show. I am Ciarán Gallagher, and with me are two wonderful guests, colleagues, whatever you'd like to call them. Introduce yourselves in alphabetical order.
Hey, it's Art.
Hi, it's Katie.
Hello, guys. Now,
Hello.
before we get into the sort of how are yous and all that kind of stuff, this is a slightly unusual episode because two of us have just watched the Moon Knight finale together, and one of us is waiting to hear about it. So even though we have lots of things to cover, I think we'll just jump into that while it's on the top of our minds. So, actually, tell you what, Dara, you haven't seen it. What do you think is going to be in it?
Oh, I don't know. I kind of gave up on the show halfway through.
Oh, that's not
I just
strong
got
endorsement.
Yeah, I just got really bored, and the fact that it's not in the British Museum gave me nothing to hang on to. I couldn't.
I said this before. That's an incredibly specific critique.
I couldn't suspend my disbelief enough. That's the problem. It took me out.
Do you watch I don't know, Star Trek and go, well, this isn't the British Museum. What am I doing here?
Well, if they set up the British Museum as a location, Keen, yes, I would.
You just wake up in the hospital and you're like, hang on, this isn't the British Museum.
Just get up in disgust and leave. Out of my way, doctor.
All right, well then I will go to Katie before I give my thoughts, because I have told that Katie has very, very big opinions on this.
Katie, before you start, are you also upset that the British Museum is misrepresented?
Do you know what? I'm going to be honest, and you're going to hate me for this. I've never been to the British Museum. I don't even know what it looks like. So it didn't register with me at all. It was just a museum to me.
See, that's the thing. That's the problem. They didn't factor in that I've been there about 8 times.
They should have made it for you specifically.
They should have. I'm okay with consulting folks. Like, hey, give me a ring and be like, hey, we're going to do this. What should we do? And I'd be like, yeah, man, that's cool. Here's what it looks like. Here's what you should do.
So from now on, if you start watching the Obi-Wan Kenobi show and it starts in the British Museum for no particular reason,
a weird start.
We'll know whose notes they read.
No, in fairness now, some scenes in Star Wars did happen in Trinity.
This is true.
That's very true.
This is true.
So, it could happen.
It could. Like the Jedi archives are, I have to say, actually, it's a pretty cool little Easter egg, particularly when you're reading the comics and stuff like that, and they're still kind of there. But no, I mean, sorry, Katie, I'll let you keep going in a second. But I mean, that's just what, yeah, I'm not happy about it. I disapprove.
Well, if that's your biggest critique, I think you're doing okay. Yeah, no, I have feelings about Moon Knight. Basically, as probably any regular listeners will know, I am a big naysayer for Marvel the last while. And I've only just kind of started getting back into it. And I was really excited for Moon Knight. And then I watched it.
I had the same reaction. I was like, that isn't the British Museum. I mean, disgust was real.
Well, I mean, for me, it's not so much the British Museum I had a problem with. It was kind of more everything. It was like I can
So
see.
you're saying you liked the British Museum segments? That's what you're telling me.
I can see what they were going for. They had the budget. They had the cast. What happened?
I liked it.
You know, like I'm trying to think which one of my Simpsons impressions would be the most apt for the show. You know, because you have Lunch Lady Doris. There's very little Moon Knight in this Moon Knight. You have Millhouse. When are they going to get to Moon Knight? And you have Fat Tony. You know, where's the Moon Knight? Why aren't you getting the Moon Knight?
Why aren't you getting the Moon Knight now?
Yeah, where's the Moon Knight? Like,
I mean, I had that exact same thing, but with the British Museum. When are they getting to the British Museum? Why aren't they there now? I tell you what really annoyed me. Sorry, Katie, right? There was a bit in it where they're going through it. I'm like, oh, at least they went to London. And then I'm like, wait, no, that's not London. I'm very familiar with London. The Eternals went to London, but they didn't. Actually, here's what annoys me all right. In the Eternals, it starts off in the National History Museum, right? So I mean, in the universe, they actually have those museums, and yet the only place that has it, and even close to Egypt, is in the British Museum in England. Well, no, there are other things, but I mean, like the main one, and it's not there. And I'm like, you couldn't have just went. Like, they probably would let you do it for free if you give them a donation. They're very nice people in there. They'll talk to you and everything. So I'm like, why didn't you go in?
Okay, there's a difference between talking and being like, hi, I'm Kevin Feige. Can my 3 Oscar Isaacs and a werewolf come and just film something over in the corner there?
2 Oscar Isaacs, too.
Sorry, what?
There's 2 Oscar Isaacs. They didn't do the third one.
I mean, here's the thing.
And Moon Knight, you know.
But there's
I imagine that's a stunt double.
Technically, there's 2.
No, well, see, they didn't have to
Okay,
shoot.
but then there's a bird beak thing.
See, they didn't have to shoot it there, but they could have just built a set that looked like it, or even shot outside, because the establishing shots aren't even any museum that's in England. It's not like they it's just very off-putting. It just pulls me out of the universe. Crazy.
So wait a minute. If I'm hearing this right, the outside of the British Museum isn't the British Museum, and the inside of the British Museum isn't the British Museum. Are you sure it's supposed to be in the British Museum?
Well, he's in England.
Exactly, and
England's
big.
But he's in like London or whatever.
Yeah, it's the only one that has Egyptian artifacts in it at that scale that people would go to. It doesn't make any sense. That's what's thrown me. I'm like, I can't place myself. That's the thing. I it's too unrealistic for me.
It's too unrealistic.
I know what I'm saying.
You know what? I think one of my biggest gripes with the show is, and I'm going to try and do this in a way that's not spoilery, but basically, because the bits where there are Moon Knight, which are few and far between, are really good, and the action scenes are really good. And I found it just a little bit too convenient that, you know, obviously because he has this dissociative mental disorder, you know, which is central to the plot, but it does this very convenient thing of him blacking out and waking up after action has happened.
Well, they do that in the first episode, and a bit in the last episode.
They do that right the way through.
Yeah, but like, to me, that was, I don't know. See, I'm a long-time Moon Knight fan, and as a long-time Moon Knight fan, I looked at this thing coming out and going, I've read Moon Knight. This is going to be awful because it is thoroughly unadaptable as a premise.
But like,
so I was actually hugely impressed with what they did. And actually, to watching my last episode there, I was thinking back to what Dara has brought up time and time again, which is that they sort of did the Egyptian mythology thing without the tongue-in-cheek quality. Like you have some spoilers, you have like giant monsters literally fighting over the pyramids, like, you know, and it kind of made me think of Dara saying, well, you know, they're actually doing this mythology po-faced and kind of serious. And I kind of like that about it, you know? This
was the thing. Like when I was watching those parts, I was like, where was this for the rest of the show? Because these bits are really, really good. Like they're really well thought out. They're well choreographed. What happened with the rest of the show?
Yeah, but like at the same time, I'd rather the action was sporadic and then it's good when it turns up. I don't like when it's just like a sort of a punch up, you know?
And like, I'm not saying everything has to be action 24/7, but there was a whole lot of nothing going on.
Well,
like a whole lot of nothing.
Episode 4 dragged a bit, but I really liked how every episode had kind of a special kind of ingredient to it, you know?
Well, look,
like I liked the episode where the two of them were in the... Yeah.
Hold on, I just want to jump in there real quick, right? Because I haven't seen the whole season, right?
Right.
So I just wanted to talk to Katie for a second there about that, right? And you said this before, and I do agree with you that Star Wars should just be on Disney Plus, right? Because it gives stuff time.
Whoa, you're gonna have to help me with this left
Did
turn
I
here.
say that?
Yeah, no, you said Star Wars would be better suited as TV on Disney Plus.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh
yeah.
yeah. Okay. As a series, yes.
Yeah, which I agree with you 100%, right? Because it gives everything time to breathe, etc. Right? Do you think the obverse here would be true? We're introducing new characters like this because I think this is the first Disney Plus show that has introduced a new character from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think this would have been better as a movie?
No, honestly, I think they were going for something really good with the series. I think they just gave it too much establishing time because I mean, each episode was like between 45 and 55 minutes, and there was, you know what I mean? There's like 6 episodes, so let's say, for argument's sake, that's 6 hours or 5.5 hours. Do you really need 5.5 hours to just establish who a character is?
But that's what I liked about this, though. I like that because all the other Disney things so far have been adapting characters that already exist in the MCU. I quite like how, like, usually I don't like the let's take a film and chop it up into bits thing, but I felt it worked here where we actually got something brand new in the Disney Plus formula with the budget, with the characters. And I liked how small and focused it was. It was only kind of like 4 characters at the end of the day. And that's a huge improvement over, like, even though I liked it, the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, where everything's too big and it's messy and all that kind of stuff. I felt like this was a really, really good story that put its energy where it needed to, you know?
I was really happy that I forgot that was a show until a few minutes ago.
Don't get me wrong, the Winter Soldier isn't awful. It's just overly long, you know?
Yeah,
it's the cost. Sorry, Katie. It's the costume that gets me at the end.
Yeah, it is a bit goofy.
Oh, it looks all. I think it might be the worst Marvel costume, I think, in the MCU so far. That's all I'll say because I know things that I'm not allowed to say.
You know things.
Yeah, I know things that I'm not allowed to say because it'll spoil things for people.
Yes, no spoilies.
No spoilies. But I don't know. I'm interested to see if what I've seen makes that costume still the worst one because I don't know. I just think I always the Falcon white costume just never looked well even in the comics. It's too. I don't think like Moon Knight's white looks a bit less naff for some reason. I think it's like the smoke effect, but I don't know. White superhero costumes never look good.
Oh, I
Well,
completely
with-
disagree.
with
Moon
Moon
Knight,
Knight as well,
It
like-
obviously it depends.
Moon
who's
Knight, yeah,
drawing it, but
Moon Knight looks cool.
contrasted with the darkness.
But, like,
looks
with-
gorgeous.
With Moon Knight as well, they went because it's mostly Mark Spector Moon Knight. They went with more of an Egyptian mummy type feel, which actually
which is cool.
works.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
then the Stephen Grant Moon Knight is also quite like because it's a suit, it's clean, you know. It's not
But
like superhero costume.
But that's it. Like, I think the Moon Knight, from what I've seen, looks really, really cool. But I'm trying to think of any other white superhero costume.
Well, I mean, the joke that Spider-Man always makes is like, just like what happens when you get dirt on that, you know?
Yeah, like
what they did in Deadpool.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it gets red, so you don't get the blood. I'm like trying to clean, like, you know yourself if you're wearing anything white and you're like, oh, I'm not eating spaghetti because, like, you know, and it's like you're punching someone. There's gonna the blood all over. That's gonna be ridiculous.
Yeah, but it's magic.
Well, I actually saw a
You
meme
can't
about
just
that.
say- well, when you notice it, a wizard did it.
I actually saw a meme
But it's
about that
literally
recently.
magic.
It was like, you know, the superheroes texting each other.
Oh, yeah.
And it was Deadpool texting Moon Knight, and he was like, "How do you get the blood out of your costume?" And Moon Knight was just like, "I don't know, Khonshu does it."
See, that's fair. That at least makes some sort of sense. But I'm like, I don't know. Listen, if my job was to punch people really hard to the point that they'd be in bits, I'd probably go for the darkest costume I could because when
He's
you
a
can't.
Moon Knight.
No, Moon Knight is fine. Moon Knight is magic. That's okay. I'm talking about what's your man's name?
Deadpool.
No, Sam Wilson.
Oh, you're talking about the Falcon. I really want to talk Moon Knight, guys. You're not making it easy on me here.
I'm just saying, there are problems in the MCU on TV, and they start
Hashtag WandaVision.
Well, when they started the British Museum, not being there.
If I could swear before 5.
Hashtag recut with the British Museum. Actually, I might do that. I might recut the series with like established shots of the British Museum.
You're just going to do all the Disney Plus things in the British Museum. Is that it?
You say that like it's a bad thing.
Jarrett, they're in the museum for like probably 10 minutes out of the whole 6 hours.
And I know, and they couldn't have just shot there for 5 minutes. I mean,
You know what? I bet after all this hype, we're gonna find out that like all those doctor scenes were filmed in a back office of the British Museum or something, and it's gonna be really embarrassing.
The entire boat was actually the British Museum.
Yeah, the hippo actually works there.
I'll take it back if that's the case, but for right now.
Here's another thing. Why do all the Egyptian gods have English accents?
Because it's fancy.
Yeah. We kind of talked about that after the first episode. Yeah, it's
just,
kind of...
Well, all the gods, period. It's because it's fancy. It's the same in Thor. They all had British accents as well.
It's wrong, though. Because they literally have one of the main characters is Egyptian. And she has an Egyptian accent. And it's like, what happened with the gods?
It's just because it's fancy. That's all. It's just shorthand for, there is a term for it. I can't remember the actual term, but it's cinematic shorthand for class.
Yeah, but I remember a time when British accents meant bad guys, Star Wars.
Oh yeah, but they're also they were the fancy bad guys who did nothing wrong. Hashtag the Emperor did nothing wrong. It's true.
I'm sorry, I'm Googling who plays the Amish now. I suppose
Amish
that
kind of had a somewhat less British accent, but it was in there a bit as well.
Maybe he was part of the Empire.
But
set it up for the crossover. Wouldn't that be cool, actually? A Moon Knight Star Wars crossover.
Oh, Moon Wars. Star Knight.
Yeah.
Because it is. We are recording this on the 4th of May, by the way, everybody. So
we will get to it.
Oh,
whether there's a good reason for it or not, Star Wars always finds its way in.
Do we have a Star Wars topic?
No, there's tragically, for some reason, nothing particular. I had a look through Disney Plus, and like they have lots of like the kind of the Star Wars things on the top bar, but nothing seems to have come out.
When's Obi-Wan coming out?
The end of this month.
The end of this month, yeah.
But no, I'm sorry, I hate to disagree with you guys. I really like this show. The Moon Knight and the bad guy, the Ethan Hawke character, their dynamic, I really, really enjoyed. I think that's my favorite hero-villain pairing of the Disney Pluses.
You know what? How many Egyptian god-powered avatars does it take to beat like an old monk guy with glass in his sandals?
Apparently 3.
like he's some guy wearing like baggy robes with an awful hairstyle that puts glass in his sandals, and every time he walks you can hear him tinkling around.
Yeah, but he's been like magic kind of culting for like ages and ages, and he's a former Moon Knight. Like he knows his stuff. Like
he's a former Moon Knight, but he doesn't have that kind of Khonshu magic behind him anymore. Like
but if it's magic, they don't have to be like kind of like Arnold Schwarzenegger types.
I get that he has Amit magic behind him, but he doesn't really have full Amit magic behind him because she's imprisoned. You know?
I suppose, but I don't mind that. I don't mind the physical fight stuff if like the scenes are fun.
A wizard did it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, although I will say, actually, harkening back to the Egyptian thing, there is a moment in the fight where like a girl says, "Are you an Egyptian superhero?" And she responds, "Yes," and it comes across so hollow.
I saw that actually. Are you a superhero? I am. And it's like, okay, you're not, but all right.
No, not even that is here. It's like an Egyptian superhero.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, but they're kind of English sounding, It's it's one thing to sort of marvelify the Egyptian gods, but to kind of like claim it like it's a cool liberating moment.
No, hang on now. If they can marvelify the Norse gods, they can marvelify the Egyptian gods.
Thank you, Katie.
They can, and that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying it sounded like the show was going for this cool, like, liberating moment.
But I mean, would you
having
not...
a cool Egyptian character that they hadn't quite earned? You know what I mean?
Would you not consider Thor a superhero?
Yeah, but like the difference is Norse isn't a country. Like it's more of a vague sort of tapestry of it, whereas Egypt, like they're literally fighting in Egypt, you know?
But this is in terms of religions, though.
Yeah, it's not the same thing. I'm gonna have to. Yeah, Katie's right. Like Egypt as we know it now is not Egypt as.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's not
like,
the same.
Okay, all right. I'm happy to succeed the point to you two guys.
It's like saying Rome.
Yeah.
Italy
Yeah.
isn't Rome. Rome isn't Italy. You know, it's a different thing. And we're actually going to see the Marvelification of looks like the Olympians very, very soon. Which,
Well, they've already started that. I mean, with the Eternals had some Olympians in it.
yeah,
like,
no,
you know.
that was they weren't no, they were more they weren't the Olympians. They were they were gods from different mythology art, but the Olympians like Zeus. And
Well,
stuff.
how do you square that? Because wasn't Angelina Jolie literally named after like a Greek god?
Yeah, but like Athena is a bit more. You're right, but it's a bit more complex than that. I mean, like Athena is Roman as well, but she's also Greek. I mean, like they are literally going to Olympus.
Right. Yes.
They're literally
Russell
going to
Crowe
Olympus.
is going to be Zeus and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like with Athena, it's a bit more kind of open ended because she's a warrior, blah blah blah. Same with Daedalus and all that kind of stuff. Like it's, you know, I'm willing to let, and they actually do set up as well, saying like, oh, you know, all the stories you made are made up. You know, we embellished them, and you know, so that kind of stuff. But I mean, like, we're actually going to go to Olympus, so I'm kind of interested how they're going to square that circle, because it's like, wait, hold on, Athena's in Olympia, but how is she going to be there if she can't? You know, so yeah, it's a whole big mess.
Yeah, but there's always going to be that, like, you know, an Avengers movie happens, there's a big shake, and then they kind of move sideways into the weird territory. That's how we got Doctor Strange in the first place. It was after the Civil War, like, you know.
Yeah.
It'll all settle, like, you know.
It will.
know what they're doing.
It seems to be when they do the weirder stuff, like 9 times out of 10, those tend to be better than the main Avengers stuff, in my opinion.
I agree. Like Doctor Strange 1 is probably my favorite Marvel movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was really good.
Brilliant. It's just
and then
brilliant.
you had, like, you know, the original Guardians of the Galaxy, Black Panther, like these were all kind of more sideline characters that would pop into the Avengers.
Sure, even Iron Man. Iron Man is the definition of a sideline character.
The first Iron Man.
Yeah. Iron Man wasn't a big character.
Yeah.
But the
People
thing there is
responded to
doing
him.
though, and actually I think Thor Ragnarok is responsible for this, is they've discovered you don't need to have an Avengers level thing to have an Avengers movie. What you do instead is you mix and match combinations of characters. So like Thor Ragnarok had Hulk and Thor together off on a bros adventure type thing.
Yeah.
And now like kind of they're moving into, well, Doctor Strange, I know you know who's in it, Dara, but like Doctor Strange seems to have everyone on the planet. But before that, Spider-Man No Way Home had Doctor Strange in it, you know.
Yeah.
So they're leaning more towards crossovers rather than big tentpole events. And even
like Spider-Man Homecoming had, you know, a little bit of Iron Man in it. And
Well, they did say that there's never going to be an Avengers 6 or an Avengers 5. I mean,
they're going to do a Young Avengers at some point.
They will at some point.
That's a different thing though.
They might be keeping it in their back pocket or something, but
they're not going to do an Avengers, like what's it, 5 Avengers 5. They're not going to do Avengers 5 like as a direct continuation. They'll do like, you know, Young Avengers is absolutely coming, but I think that'll be a TV show.
You say that, but I think like, you know, you could either do the Young Avengers or like they are setting up the sort of, what are they called, the Thunderbolts, the evil Avengers. Like there's a post-credit sting on this which you won't spoil, but like I expected your one from Seinfeld from Black Widow and the Falcon and Winter Soldier to turn up. Like, you know, they are setting up team related things.
Yeah, but that's for
further down the line, if not the Avengers specifically.
Yeah, but that's for Secret Wars.
But there's another one. Like they're having like more mid-sized events.
Yeah,
aren't they doing like Armor Wars and stuff as well?
They are doing Armor Wars as well. Yeah,
yeah.
That's soon. That's
I mean,
soon.
like again, you say like we know Avengers, but they do have a new Captain America, they're going to have a new Iron Man, they're going to have a new Thor soon. Like they're going to have a new Hulk soon. If they wanted to do it next year, like, and decided to start doing it now, they probably could pull it together, you know?
I just don't see it. Like I mean, well, I agree with you. They are going to do a big team movie, but calling it the Avengers, I don't think they're going to call it that. I think they're
Not
going to call it.
literally the Avengers, but even the Avengers films were careful not to call themselves Avengers 1, 2, and 3. You know, Marvel, after Iron Man, Marvel copped to the fact that they can't put like numbers in their things because it'll make people aware of how saturated it all is, you know?
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's a very good point. It's a very, very good point.
Not that I'm down on Marvel. I'm very excited to see what's coming next. To be honest, I know you're down in it, but I like that with the Disney Plus thing, even though I know it's kind of like Marvel's now subsuming popular culture. I still like
Marvel created popular culture.
In a sense, yeah, they were definitely one of the establishing pillars.
That's true. That's true.
Like Marvel is the same stories that we've always told. That's the thing. No, as a knock-on effect of that, though, the new comics are, and we've talked about it before, they're horrendous. Like Marvel comics nowadays are not even fit to put in a dog's box. Like my dogs would be like, I want something better.
In a way, what can Marvel comics do when Marvel is already in so many media things, you know?
Yeah, well, you know, the new Batman series came out today, and it's like a retelling of Flashpoint. So I haven't read it, but there's good buzz around that. It's just Marvel doesn't want to do comics anymore. But sorry,
there's not as much money in comics these days either.
Absolutely. I mean,
yeah,
I always,
everything would have moved online and onto apps, I'd say, by now.
Well, I always make the joke. I think I made it to you, Keen, as well. At Comic-Con, it's like the quietest place at Comic-Con is over by the comics. You know, it's like, where are you going? I'm going to take a break over by the comics. Like, there's less people at the comics at Comic-Con usually than there is in the sensory room, you know? And you're like, wow, okay, in the quiet room, it's more quiet by the comics than it is in the quiet room, you know?
Yeah.
And that kind of speaks volumes because people just aren't interested. But I mean, that's the older comics. The new books are just trash, you know, like absolute garbage. And the only ones I would read would be like the only books I buy are if a decent Spider-Man crossover happens, or if usually it's DC. DC still have good books. So but my point was the stories, like the big stories that we have from Marvel that are now in the movies or setting up the movies, they're the same stories that we've told over and over again, which is, you know, kind of cool. So it's readapting these big hero tropes and mythologies and all that kind of stuff. Like I was just in Naples this week, and you know, you're looking at, I was in a place called Spelongo, which is that has these big statues of the Odyssey, you know, from the Odyssey. And you're like, you know, if our culture was like that, where we built statues instead of put stuff online, they'd be, you know, Thor and Spider-Man, and, you know, it'd be a scene from the Avengers. But instead of committing it to block, we now commit it to the internet, we commit it to celluloid. And I mean, that's just kind of it. Like in a couple, well, you know, if we were flash frozen, you know, like Pompeii, you know, you wouldn't have scenes from the Odyssey and the Iliad outside of my house. You know, you might have them there because I do have some Greek phrases. You would have in most people's houses, though, like posters with Spider-Man or Batman.
Yeah, I heard the same thing said about Garfield merchandise. Like, you know,
that's a freaky thing, though, that Garfield is everywhere. I've seen that video too, and that's terrifying. But I mean, like, no, this is more like a cultural thing where like they're the same stories. So Marvel and comic books have kind of taken over that because we don't have a unifying culture anymore, you know. And the thing about it is, these big stories come from unifying cultures. And when you get like for example, as we were talking about, Egypt was a unifying culture that brought in that part of Africa, went up through Rome, went into Egypt. Now, America was the biggest culture. And what's America's biggest export culturally? Superheroes. The American dream, all that kind of stuff. Superheroes being a big part of it. So that's how it grew this big. Now we don't really have that now because of certain things that are just going to happen around the world where there's not that unifying culture. So those big stories aren't being produced now because, you know, no one has taken up that mantle yet of being the unified culture. But in about 100, 200 years, whatever does happen, those stories are going to come back around again, just in a different way, because humans only know about 7 stories. And we
That's
just
the
keep
theory
telling
that
them.
goes. Yeah.
Well, there's Joseph Campbell's Hero with a Thousand Faces, which, look, yeah, okay, you can fit most of them into it, but realistically, you look at any story, it's going to be in one of 7 paths, one of 7 plots, or one of 7 teams, because that's what we do. We're humans. We don't change,
Yeah,
Yeah,
but would
like
you not,
each-
like, not to make this an entire metaphysical thing, but would you not argue that humans are pattern finders, and that once you've given them those 7 story types, they'll find a way to make a story fit that type? You
Yeah,
know what
but
I mean? Like,
but
Lord of the Rings isn't a typical hero's journey necessarily, but the filming, the way they adapted it into the film trilogy, made it into a typical hero's journey,
I would disagree. I would disagree. I would say it's fundamentally an example of that process, because Tolkien literally wrote it to be a unifying English mythology that the world can tap into without the problematic nature of the British Empire.
Okay, all right. I really want, I don't know what to offer because you're clearly cleverer than me, but
Stop it, Keane. I'm just a massive nerd who's been in Rome for the past week or so. So don't be silly. I'm just like wired now at the moment. That's all.
I'm just thinking I was in London last week and I didn't go to the British Museum. I should have gone.
Why did you tell me that? Now I'm upset with you.
go back to London, go to the British Museum.
Yeah, no, literally, if you listeners and everybody on the show, if I find out you've been in London, I'm going to be disappointed if you didn't go to the British Museum. It's
Sarah
free.
wants to break into reels and
It's free.
TikToks. Send us yours.
Free. It's free. They don't even ask for money. They have a little box and you can give them money if you feel sorry for them. It's free.
I know you feel sorry for them.
I do. It's great. Great day out for the whole family and me.
All right. Well, since we're kind of on the Marvel vibe anyway, like Doctor Strange comes out. It's out today. It will be sort of out to everyone in general because this will be going out on Saturday. Like, what do you kind of, and I'll go to Katie first, kind of what do you kind of expect from this? Because I'm a huge Doctor Strange fan, but it's just, I keep waiting for this multiverse thing to reach a saturation point of, okay, when are we going to lose people? Because it's so big and so absurd, and yet people seem on board for it. Like, what's your kind of feelings on kind of Doctor Strange 2, Katie?
I think there's going to be big magic explosions and lots of superheroes, and I'm totally here for it because I love the chaotic craziness. I hate it when Marvel tries to structure everything and put rules behind it. Like, I love it when it just goes absolutely AWOL.
Okay, but like, I mean, I suppose I quite like the structured thing. I feel like even though chaos is fun, kind of once you kind of take it out of the bottle, it's very hard to kind of put it back in.
Well, that's
You know
the
what I mean?
beauty of it. Like, why would I want to put it back in? Do you know what I mean? If I enjoy it so much, I'm going to want more and more and more of it. I mean, when I went to see Spider-Man, it was like the best thing for me ever. You know, I was like cheering when the other
Yes.
Spider-Men showed up, and I was
rewatched
crying.
No Way
and-
Home and the other night, and I must have been in a bad mood because when I first saw it, because I really, really enjoyed it the second
Mhm.
time. It's a very solid
just,
film.
Yeah, it had that. I don't know what, like, it was so, there was so much fan service and I was living for it, you know?
But that's what I mean, though. Like, at what point does, because I've seen the trailers for Doctor Strange 2. I know some of the things that are in it. At what, like, is there not a risk of going so far with that kind of stuff that it then becomes, you're in a sort of a DC situation where it's so big you can't kind of rein it in a bit, you know?
I think as long as they don't try to recreate Endgame, because I really did not like what they did with Endgame. As long as they don't try to go back that way, they'll be all right.
Okay. What about you, Dara?
So as I said, I know the cameos that are showing up, but it's one scene. I purposely didn't look at the plot. I purposely didn't look at how we got to that scene or anything else. So I am kind of going in relatively blind, right? I agree with Katie. I think she's spot on with all those points. The only thing I'd like to add to it, I guess, is they kind of need to do this. It's too much of a mess at the moment. Like, it is a absolute mess. It's very much a tease as well. They've been kind of going, what? Like, I'm still not over the Evan Peters thing. I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, you think the British Museum annoyed me? Like, you can't just do that. Like, that's not
Evan
fair.
Peters, tweet us from the British Museum.
Oh my god, that'd be great. Or go to the British Museum and we hang out. Imagine a group photograph with Evan Peters where we hang out and we're in the British Museum. Amazing. Anyway, I just think he's a great actor. He's so good. Have you seen American Animals? That is a great movie. Sorry, he's a great actor. Anyway, I'm still not over that. I was just like, you can't just do that. Now, I think they've realized, look, we have to give some kind of explanation of what's actually going on and where we actually are. Loki, I thought, was a bad move because they didn't give people that, that kind of it's more like a GPS. What's a sat nav location of like, right, we are here. This is what's going on. This is what you can expect.
What, in terms of multiverse or what?
Yeah, of kind of just like what's going on, because usually in comics, when you again look, comics are weird, right? But when the multiverse thing is done nowadays, or even back at Crisis of Infinite Earths, there would be a fair amount to set up, and there would be like supplemental material going, hey, look, here's the world where you are, here's what's going on, here's what the multiverse looks like here. And they kind of did it a little bit in Thor 2, actually, where they're explaining the fact that Marvel is in a multiverse. And they're in
the Dr. Selvig,
yeah, Dr. Selvig is literally talked about this about 10 years ago, and they really should bring him out to be like, hey, what's going on? So
remember me?
Yeah, look, I think that would be a cool web series to do. To be like, right, here's what's going on, blah 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 blah, and then catch everybody up to speed, or even do it as a post-credit sequence or something. I mean, like, that would be cool.
I mean, like, they sort of, because I'm a bit lost on now. I don't mind where the multiverse comes from, but you've got a multiversal event starting in Loki, and then you've got a multiversal event starting in Doctor Strange / Spider-Man. And that's not even getting into the what if, where you also had a fight across the multiverses.
Now what I will say is, from what I've seen, it does seem like a lot of the threads are being addressed.
Okay.
Again, I don't know how. I don't know why. I don't know in what order. I don't really know. But it does seem like they are kind of laying to rest a lot of those loose threads from all the different areas. Like Spider-Man's one was kind of set up, was kind of addressed. And the thing about that is that was to get Spider-Man out of the MCU so he can do his own thing. So, I mean, like, I don't know if we're going to see Spider-Man again.
Not for a while anyway.
But the thing Doctor Strange did to help Spider-Man in the movie is like the thing that seemingly splits the multiverse open. That's what I'm saying. Like,
well, no,
it
was already split open with Kang.
But that's what I'm saying, though. Yeah. It's like, which is it? Which thing splits the multiverse open?
Well, the thing about it is, from my understanding, again, I could be wrong, but from my understanding of it, the multiversal split was happening anyway. And that's kind of what Kang was talking about. He's like, look, I'm going to be back around anyway. So it was kind of like an inevitable thing that Selvig was. Yeah, exactly. And then they talk about it. Thanos was always going to show up. And I mean, like, there are just these constants that, because again, it's like anything. The Marvel Cinematic Universe seems to operate on these main events that are going to happen no matter what. It's kind of like a predestination almost, where like, no matter what you do, it's going to happen, just in what order. And I think maybe Spider-Man gave them a kind of taste in universe, but now it's going to be like the real one, right? Wanda has broken up, and it seems to be all around Wanda. Wanda seems to be the one who actually broke this beyond any repair.
Exactly. Well, there's like Wanda, but
and Wanda's more powerful than Doctor Strange.
Oh, well, she's ridiculously powerful. Like,
so
she was like the House of M, the end of the Avengers, like.
But see, these yeah, and again, like, actually, I reread House of M because I read it once when I was like 14, and it's not that I didn't like it. I just kind of went over my head a little bit. I was kind of like, oh yeah, okay, that's not fun. and then I read it again recently. I'm like, geez, that's a great story. And if you guys haven't read House of M, actually, I really would recommend. I think you pick it up for like €25. It's not
Yeah,
expensive.
House of M. I'm not big on Marvel crossover events. It was the original Civil War that caused me to stop reading Marvel comics at
Oh
the end
yeah,
of
that's a terrible book. That's a
But no,
terrible
no,
book.
not even the book itself. It's that it completely stopped the Young Avengers and the New Avengers series, which I
Right.
was really enjoying, and that's before Spider-Man wished Mary Jane away. But anyway, that's a decade ago.
Yeah.
The House of M was a fun one because, like, in that one, you had your main story, but if you wanted to do a 3-part Iron Man story set in a world of mutants, that was cool.
Yeah.
There is a 1-issue story of just Captain America in a world of mutants where he never gets frozen and he's the original astronaut on the moon and he says it's one small step for man and mutant kind, and like that was a cool little thought experiment that cleaned up after itself. I liked that. Like that was done and then the mutants were gone and then like kind of the MCU kind of reset. What I'm nervous about with this multiverse stuff is in comics they'll do these big events that get everyone excited and get them all together, and then they don't have a way of cleaning up after themselves
Yes.
in a way that damages the whole thing altogether.
Yes.
Now, Marvel are clever. You don't get to be around this long by not knowing what you're doing, but that's my hesitation. And with this Doctor Strange film, if it's a Doctor Strange film in the truest sense, and it's about Wong, and it's about Mordo, and like all the characters from the first one, and it's just got a lot of multiverse stuff in it, that'd be cool. Like they managed that with Spider-Man, where the Spider-Men were in it, but it was still a story about Peter Parker at the end of the day.
Right.
If it's a multiverse fan service thing disguised as Doctor Strange 2, that would be my only concern,
No, I don't think it's that. It doesn't, from what I've seen, it doesn't seem to be excuse me. From what I've seen, it doesn't seem to be that. The reviews are saying to temper your expectations. Which,
okay.
Because I mean, like, look, Spider-Man No Way Home is unbelievable, right?
Yeah, it's like the bar now.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think that's fair because that is not only is that earned, it's also aping everybody's first experience with like a lot of Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man 2 was people's probably first superhero movie in a lot of sense,
Yeah.
I mean, like when I saw that movie, I was sitting in the same theater that I saw Spider-Man 1 and 2 in.
Oh.
So I mean, like, that's not fair. That's not a fair thing to judge it. But what I will say is at the same time, it's one of the things where you're sitting there and you're like, right, what are they trying to do? They're trying to reset their house so they can actually continue on, because the thing about the DCEU or the DC universe in general is they're just going to keep going anyway. And I mean, that's smart. DC's always done that. The comics were the same. They're like, yeah, okay, we have hundreds of different universes. They're all at the same time. Don't think about it, nerd. Marvel were like, hey, all this happens at the same time, and you're a nerd, so that's cool.
They kind of painted themselves into a corner.
Yeah, they did. They absolutely did.
What, Marvel or DC?
Marvel.
But they always have.
I don't think they have yet, personally.
No, not like when they did the whole Avengers and then Infinity War and Endgame. Yeah. They kind of, it was like, where do we go from here? I mean, even in like Infinity War, they killed off half of the cast and then they had to bring them all back anyway.
Yeah, but that was to give the original, that was to shrink down the universe so the Avengers could have a send-off. I thought that worked really well.
Yeah, but what they're doing a similar thing here now where they have all these toys, most of which they can't use because they're ancient or they're not relevant. So they're like, right, how do we square this circle? They're like, right, we'll bring in who we can, we'll explain away other things, and then kind of set up the rest. And that's what I expect. Now, again, I haven't seen the movie. I'm going to probably see it tomorrow. Again, I haven't read the plot, but from what I have seen and from my understanding of it, it looks like that's the goal of this movie, because it was the goal of No Way Home as well, to be like, oh, all these Spider-Men do exist and are in the MCU now, because they need to kind of square this circle, and it's a really weird circle that they're drawing.
So it's like cleaning. So you're talking about like the X-Men, I'm assuming, and all that kind of stuff. You're kind of like making a bigger mess to hide the mess that's already there.
yeah, and I mean, like, even like, look, we talk about Morbius to the cows come home, but that's, that's just don't
Oh, I
watch
forgot
Morbius.
about Sony. Isn't that tragic?
No, tragic is the word. It's pure tragedy. Like, but the thing about it is,
Quick reminder: our friend Kev's pick for last year's film of the year was Carnage.
Oh God, that's a poor pick. Sorry, Kev.
This is what you get for not turning up and tidying your bedroom.
You chose poorly.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
No, I mean, fair play. It's definitely a choice anyway. It's definitely a choice.
Look, I mean, it's worth pointing out that, like, Doctor Strange, it feels like, has been in the MCU for a long time and done a lot of substantial stuff. We are on Doctor Strange 2 now.
Well, here's the thing. He is the heart of the MCU now.
Well, I suppose
he's been kind of underutilized to this point.
Yeah.
He's
more of a plot device. I mean, even in Spider-Man, he was a plot device. He wasn't like...
Yeah, he was, yeah.
So I feel like he's kind of overdue his own...
Oh, he is. I completely agree. But what I'm saying is, compared to Iron Man, the nature of the MCU has changed so much that if there's 5-6 years between your first and second film, you could have been there the whole time. Like, that's how much the landscape has changed for Marvel,
But there was so much going on. I mean, like, look at Spider-Man. It took a trilogy of movies to give him an origin story.
Yeah.
So I'm like, it's one of the things where you're like, right, look, let's put it this way. If at the end of this movie things aren't sorted out, I'll be annoyed.
Right.
Because I'm like, okay, you have gone way too far. You have given us nothing, sir. And you need to, I think everyone's patience will be lost. I mean, if they bring out Evan Peters one more time and he's not Quicksilver, I'll walk out of the theater.
Oh my goodness, we need to get Evan Peters and more things just to wind up Dara. I mean,
he's a great actor, like, legit.
Oh, like, I know he is. Like, it's look, I mean, I don't mean to sound down on Marvel, because I love Marvel, and if they shut up shop tomorrow, I think you couldn't take what they've accomplished from them at this point.
Yeah.
I suppose it's worth considering that, like, for that first 2 or 3 phases, weren't, like, all the Avengers actors under really, like, strict contracts to, like, do 15 appearances here, there, and everywhere. And now Marvel's at the stage where, again, going back to that Doctor Strange thing, where the universe is so big that you can get an actor like Benedict Cumberbatch or like Brie Larson or whatever to just kind of turn up every 3 or 4 years, and it still feels like they're constantly there. Because,
well, dude, I mean, like,
you couldn't do the Avengers with those characters perpetually,
Well, I mean, look, it's the comic books, because that's the way it is. Like, look, Mr. Fantastic is one of the best.
Yeah, but in the comic books, you're not paying an actor.
No, but what I mean,
who has to give up their time and energy to go to a green screen studio to punch a goblin or something.
But this is what I mean. Like, Mr. Fantastic is a good example of this, because he kind of works the same as Doctor Strange, but he's less interesting, right? In the Fantastic Four, he's terrible. The Fantastic Four are a terrible book, but have very interesting characters and the best villain ever put to screen, right? Or, sorry, yet to put to screen. He's one of the best villains that's never been in a movie, that we talked
original
about.
Darth Vader, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Doctor Doom, when he's in the MCU, holy hell, are we in for a good time?
You hang on a minute now. That Doctor Doom
we do not talk about that movie.
Which movie?
That Doctor Doom in the first Fantastic Four was chef's kiss.
Okay.
Yeah, I liked him, the Nip Tuck guy. He was great.
Yeah, Nip Tuck guy, brilliant.
Okay, I'll give you that. But I mean,
in fact, the original Fantastic Four, the cast were pretty solid. I mean, you had Chris Evans in there early. They caught him first.
But I mean, if you're working that into the MCU, you can really kind of turn that to be something really special, But the point is, in the comic books, the MCU's the Fantastic Four's biggest legacy to the franchise is not the Fantastic Four. It's everything else. They just hang out and show up sometimes. So Spider-Man,
Yeah, that's true.
most
Yeah.
of the time, Spider-Man's like, I can't figure this out. I'm going to go talk to Reed Richards,
Hmm.
and that's what
In
they do.
fact, isn't Spider-Man's first issue
Yeah,
going to ask the Fantastic Four to give him work or something?
correct. Yeah, and that's but that happens as well with Daredevil sometimes and Doctor Strange. And I mean, if that's the way it is, that's okay because that's the way the comics are. You know, I mean, once the stories are still good and once the characters are still quite good, then it doesn't really matter too much. Like I don't need big team up movies. You know,
Yeah.
I actually used to love it when they had the weekly, or it was weekly or monthly editions, whatever it was. When you would open it, the first page was like a roll call, you know, who you could expect to
Yeah.
see.
I used to
Yeah,
get
that was
those.
cool.
Yeah, the
That was
Avengers
cool.
United and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I always loved that. And you'd open it and you'd go, oh, She-Hulk's in this one, or Spider-Man's in this one.
Can I actually, because I've been raiding my local library for all the comics for all their worth. And I've been reading this run called The West Coast Avengers. And
That's great.
just to kind of illustrate Dara's point, it's so dense.
Yeah.
Everything happens in it, and yet
Yeah.
it's not convoluted. Like in the span of one book, you've got the Vision being killed and turned into a robot without feelings. You've got Wanda losing her kids. You've got the evil Captain America from Falcon and the Winter Soldier taking over. You've got Magneto turning Scarlet Witch into a demon or something. You've got Loki pulling in all the supervillains to do some big crusade, and I'm skipping over stuff. And yet, because those characters are all so well set up, you can have like 30, like the Eternals even pop up in it, like, you know, but because it's all so well set up, you can kind of have them just come and go, and it doesn't feel jarring. Do you think that's the end goal for Marvel here? Like,
Potentially. You know, I like it seems like initially they're like, right, we need to really hit big here. But if this is just going to continue, you know, I don't want to say forever because that's ridiculous, but you know, for a very long time, to me it makes much more sense that they're like, right, if we're going to set this up, you know, we can't afford to lock actors in to these massive contracts to go on forever because that's crazy. Like, it's not going to work. But doing it this way, where you're like, right, you show it's like being a theater actor, actually. You know, where you're like, right, you have, or
like
you know,
you're in a rep company,
you're in a
like
rep
that
company,
kind of thing.
yeah, or you're a soap actor that shows up every now and then. Like it's a reoccurring role that you do, but you can do other things as well.
That's true. I mean, the Guardians are going to be in Thor 4.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, like, that's the way comics are, though. You know, just like that was always one of the really coolest things about comics. You're like, right, you could be reading an X-Men book and Spider-Man shows up. You know, and you're like, oh, cool, what's going to happen? Because they all exist together. And I mean, like, it doesn't help that a lot of it's based in New York. And that was the weirdest thing about even the, you know, Iron Man 3 is case in point. All the stuff is going on and not one Avenger shows up. Like, what are you doing? Like,
well, I mean, I even had that with Moon Knight, like, you know, because the big stuff is happening over Egypt, and kind of like you think, Thor's not pulling his weight if they're this big and no one's turned up yet, you know?
Yeah, see, that's what I mean. Like, you have to kind of balance that stuff out because otherwise it gets lost. And then there's the question going, well, what are they doing? But if they set up in such a way that it's just like, right, they're around, stuff's going to happen. It gives them a lot more leeway, not just with like the reality of, you know, you can't just draw them. They're actual living, breathing people. It gives you the opportunity to work with it. And I mean, I think we're going to see that really with Black Panther as well, when they kind of fix that whole mess.
Yeah,
that
and
is
also
very much a
you've
real
got
world mess.
The next Disney Plus thing is Miss Marvel, who is like, she is in many respects not an improvement, but an exaggeration of the sort of young Peter Parker who is a fan of the MCU from within the MCU.
Yeah.
So I think they're going to start bringing that ingredient into it, you know, because the MCU's been around long enough that young kids have grown up in a world only with the MCU existing, you know?
Yeah, but what I mean is it's important to specify that it gives Marvel the opportunity to bend real world problems, but also fix in-universe problems as well.
Yeah.
You know, by making it more like, because here's the thing, like when the problem
I'm really sorry that we've got 2 minutes. So this is your last point.
I'll be quick. One of the biggest problems with comic book movies, and you can see it with Morbius, it's that it doesn't feel like it's real. It doesn't
Yeah.
feel like it's a real breathing environment. It feels like a video game. And Morbius feels like a really bad video game, right? And that's what all those movies were up until Iron Man, where you're like, oh, wait, this is a real thing. This is this is an alive universe. And once Marvel maintains that, it's fine. They just got to fix it because it's a messy room at the moment.
Okay, so in conclusion, Moon Knight is liked by 1 and disliked by 2.
I didn't
Well,
dislike it.
hold on now. I didn't
I
say
didn't
I
dislike it.
disliked it. I said that it had great potential, poorly executed.
Moon Knight is contested.
Moon
Doctor
Knight,
Strange, we are optimistic. The
yes,
British Museum, we are fans of.
yes. Yeah, I need a free
And
pass.
yes, I think
free
we
anyway.
kind of covered a lot of like really good kind of MCU future stuff now. So with 30 seconds to go, Katie, would you like to plug anything?
Just that I am back doing shoots and creative projects. So if anyone would like to support me, head over to my socials, Mannequin Blue, follow the links to my link tree, and buy my art or donate to future projects.
Excellent, Dar.
Nerd to Know Media, nerdtoknowmedia@gmail.com. If you want to book us for anything, we're going to be doing cons very, very soon. And go to the British Museum.
With that in mind, I have been Cian.
Bandar.
And Katie.
And we will be back next week, probably with a review of Doctor Strange 2. We'll see if any of our predictions are right. They usually aren't, but thank you for listening anyway. So until then, bye-bye.
Join us at nerdtoknowmedia.com.
All right, so you're listening to the podcast. You're like, hey, I'm not in Ireland. How do I get in touch? Well, TuneIn has you covered. That's how you can check us out live when we're on the radio. You go to TuneIn and download the app, or you can check out the live streams on nerdtoknowmedia.com or Phoenix 92.5 FM. If you want to get in contact with us, it's very easy. Nerd to Know Media everywhere. Nerd to Know Media on Twitter. Nerd to Know Media Instagram. Nerd to Know Media on Twitch. Nerd to Know Media at gmail.com if you want to reach out via email. Hope to hear from you soon.
Hey, Dara, what are you doing over there in Ireland? Like with the freaking leprechauns and everything. That's not cool. You should be over here with the cosplayers. At least then you could, like, I don't know, pretend like you got, I don't know, some kind of thing going on. Yeah, with you give me a Brooklyn rage. Yeah, with you. Dara. Yeah, Dara. Why ain't you over here with Joey? Anyway, we missed you, dude. So, this is Zero Karibo saying,
I love it. All I do is just believe in the...
Thank you for listening to a Nerd to Know Media production.